Hey everyone, my name's Adam. Welcome to this live event, Planning Made Easy. We're going to show you how to use our planning tool. And planning is a free tool that you can use in your web browser or on your mobile phone, and you can plan your worship services, schedule volunteers, add rehearsal materials in there. You can also communicate with your teams through our messages feature. And so we're just going to show you how to use it and how to get started in this workshop. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to pass it over to Joanne.
Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in today. We are looking at the planning app, and I'm actually going to be demonstrating on the web version, which is available at planning.worshiptools.com/app. But if you have an Apple or an Android mobile device, you can find planning in your app store and download it to your device that way. Just keep in mind that if you are following along on the mobile devices, formatting might be a little different, but we'll still have access to all the same features. Planning is a great way to stay on top of your service preparations because it allows you to manage your song library, manage your staff and your volunteers, invite them to specific roles on your services, plan out your services, and a lot more. So whether you're a big church, a small church, a church plant, or an established church, planning is going to be a really great tool for you, especially because it's available for free. Now, as we get into the demo, keep in mind that we have a total of 6 permission levels that each user on your account can be assigned to, and a lot of the things that I'm going to be demonstrating today will only be available to some of the higher levels. So if you're following along and you notice that there's something on my screen that's not available in your planning, that's totally okay. You can still follow along. Just be mindful that it's most likely just a permission level limitation. And with that, let's go ahead and open up the app. When you first sign into planning, you'll be on this dashboard page, and everyone has a dashboard regardless of permission level. The dashboard consists of your personal information, the option to submit unavailable dates, integrations with your favorite calendar app, so if you want your services to show up on Google Calendar, Outlook, or iCal, you can do those integrations here. And lastly, there's this section of upcoming services where you can quickly access services that are relevant to you. So that would be services that you are invited to and have either accepted or have not responded to yet. If you need to update any of your personal profile information, click anywhere in this general area, and that will take you to your personal profile page where you can add a photo, edit your name and email, submit those unavailable dates, etc. And if you make any changes here, always make sure to hit save so that your changes are visible to the rest of your team. From here, to get back to the dashboard, we're going to use the left navigation menu to hit dashboard. If you're following along on the mobile app, your navigation bar will be along the bottom of your screen. And then the last thing I want to touch on before we explore the other pages of planning is this upper right corner. It should have your name and your church name or your account name. And if you click on that, it opens this drop down with some other options for planning. Now, most of this drop down menu will be visible to everyone, but the activity log and the cloud storage page are only visible to admins. So if you don't see that, it just means that you're not an admin. And since we have this drop down open, let's take a look at settings real quick. Again, some of these things will be visible to everyone. Some of these things will only be visible to certain permission levels, like the CCLI Song Select integration will only be visible to organizational admins because they're the only ones that can connect or disconnect CCLI or opt into CCLI auto reporting. Down below, we have some personal integrations as well as personal settings. Apple Music and Spotify are personal integrations, so if I log into my Apple Music, it's not shared with the other people on my team. Each person would have to integrate their own Apple Music or Spotify in their own planning app to have access to these resources. And you might be wondering why Apple Music and Spotify are here. You'll see that when we get to songs, but for now, just make note of where the integration happens. So if you need to connect, you'll do that on your settings page. And then the last thing that I want to touch on this setting page is the notifications. Planning sends out service-related notifications via email and mobile push notifications if you have the mobile app installed. So you can manage those notifications here. And these are also personal settings, so every person can manage their own notification settings. Since I already covered the dashboard, let's head on to our next page, which is actually the people page. And the reason why I'm doing people instead of services first is because songs and people are some of the building blocks that go into making services. And so I want to show you how to set up your people and your songs before we start building a service together. So let's head over to the people page. The people section in planning is actually divided into 2 subpages, people and roles. The first page is where you'll find a list of all the staff and volunteers that you've invited to join your WorshipTools team. And the second page is where you'll manage the various roles that they can be assigned to. And before I continue, I should mention that the people section is only accessible to editors or higher. Now, this is totally preferential, but I like to manage my roles before I start inviting people to planning, just so that I can put them in the correct role buckets as I'm inviting them. You don't have to do it this way, but just for this demonstration's sake, let's visit the roles page and then we'll come back to the people page to finish out the people section. So this is the roles page. We've got our role groups on the left and some roles on the right. So under our pulpit team, we have pastor, announcements, speaker, and scripture reader. Under tech team, we've got these guys. Now these are the preloaded options that show up in planning when you first create an account with us, but feel free to use the various tools on this page to customize roles and role groups to better fit your ministry. For example, maybe you don't have a designated tech team and you want to delete that group altogether. You can click tech team from this left list and then hit delete group down here. Or maybe you just need to condense your tech team. If you click on any of these pencil icons, for example, backstage assistant, you can either repurpose it by renaming it, or you can delete the role altogether. Another thing that you can do here is add people to this role. So if you wanted to add 10 people to the backstage assistant role quickly, you can do that right from this window. There's also the option to drag and drop things around. So if you want to reposition lighting maybe closer to the top, you can do that. All you have to do is click on these 6 dots, hold it, and then drag it into the position you want. The roles page is pretty straightforward, and after the initial setup, you probably won't be visiting this page too often. So let's go ahead and move on to the people page. Here on the left, you can see that you've got your role groups. And you can actually use this column to sort through your people. Now, I'm currently the only user on this account because it is a newer account, but if you had more people on your team assigned to different roles, you can use this column to sort and filter. For example, if I wanted to see everybody on the worship team, I can click the worship team group, and then from there, I can even go further in detail to just worship leaders, people assigned to acoustic guitar, and so on. Over on the right, we have your team details. So WorshipTools admin, that's me. These are my roles, and this is my permission level. Again, if you have more people on your team, they would all be listed here with those same details. Search bar is pretty self-explanatory. You can search name, email, or roles. And then let's go ahead and add a person together. So this page looks very familiar. It looks like the profile page that we saw earlier, except all the fields are empty so that I can fill them out for the person that I'm adding. So let's go ahead and fill out these fields. And when you're filling these fields out, make sure that you're checking for typos because it is a little bit of a pain to fix that later. I mean, it is possible, but a little bit of a pain. So if you can check for typos ahead of time, that would be the best. When all of that looks good, you can head over to the right. And the first tab is for roles, so we're going to click edit roles. And in reality, you're going to want to have a conversation with this volunteer or staff member to see what roles they're able to serve on. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to select a bunch of random ones just so that you can see how to do it and what it looks like. So those are the roles that I've selected for Sally. Let's move on to the unavailable dates tab. Now, when I save this form, it's going to send Sally an invitation to join my team in which she can either create a login or sign in if she already has a login. Once Sally's logged in, she can submit her own unavailable dates, but as an admin, I can do that for her if I need to for whatever reason. So that's where you have the option to do that. I'm just going to leave it empty for now, and let's head over to the permissions tab. I know we touched on permissions earlier, but there are 2 levels of permission types here, and I wanted to talk about those in a little bit more detail. So as you can see here, we've got this global setting, and then we have some other settings down below. The global permission setting is kind of like the overarching or cover-all permission level for Sally. So Sally is currently listed as scheduled viewer, which is the lowest of all the permission levels, and that's going to be her default. So for all services, she's only going to be able to view services that she is scheduled on. Of course, I can increase that to viewer or something else, but we'll leave her at viewer for now. And then down below, we've got some service type specific permission options. Say that Sally is a volunteer on my youth group team and she's actually a leader. She's in charge of scheduling the worship team just for youth group services. Because of her leadership role, I want her to have the ability to schedule people and edit services for the youth group, but she's not a volunteer for the rest of the ministries in the church. So this is just a really good way to be very specific about what people can and can't do within planning, and also a way to train and delegate new leaders as well. Okay, so now that all the fields are filled in, roles have been assigned, and permissions look good, we'll go ahead and save Sally's record. And again, that's going to send Sally an invitation and add her to my team. So if I click on all, we'll see Sally right here. The last thing on this page is this messages feature, and it just provides a really easy, convenient way to stay in touch with all of your team members. Messages are sent in-app and they can be received either in your email inbox or the mobile app. And for those who have the mobile app installed, they can also turn on push notifications to receive message notifications, kind of like you do when you get a text message or a Facebook notification, etc. Messages is really convenient because you don't have to ever leave the app to talk to your team members. You don't have to fumble through a separate contact list or try to manage a separate email list every week. So definitely check out this feature if you have access to it. Now there are 3 total places where messages shows up. One is here on the people page, one is the designated messages page that you see on the left navigation bar, and the last place is within your services. The messages options in each of these places operate slightly different from each other. For example, in the context of the people page, you can send messages to certain teams. So if I wanted to send a message to everybody that's listed under the pulpit team, I can. Whereas the messages feature within the services also allows me to message by role groups, but only to the people in those role groups that are scheduled to serve on the given service. So that one's a little more fine-tuned of a recipients list. There's also the designated messages page that I kind of flashed earlier. So you've got your existing threads on the left with the option to start new messages right above it. While the other 2 messages options were limited to messaging people by role groups, this page lets you customize your recipients. So if you need to send a one-on-one message or message a customized group, you can do all of that here. Just keep in mind that if you are on a lower permission level, you might run into some limitations like creating group threads. And again, you can reference the permission levels article for more information. There's some other options for you to explore in the upper right corner, and I think that covers everything I wanted to touch on for people and messages. So I'm going to switch back to my free account and let's go to the songs page. The planning songs section consists of 2 subpages, songs and usage report. The usage report is a log of when songs were used, so you can reference this page if you need to review your song usage history or report song usage to your music licensing company. If you're licensed with CCLI, organization admins in WorshipTools can opt into CCLI auto reporting, in which we will send CCLI the list of all the songs used in each service so that you don't have to worry about manually reporting for the copyright and streaming licenses. Now earlier I mentioned that I'm on a newer account, so there really isn't any song history to show you right now, but if I did have any songs on my services, they would be listed here, I believe in order of most recently used. If you need to print the report, you can do that here, and you can even adjust the date range of the report. Back to the main songs page. The songs page in planning is, in my opinion, the best place to really manage your WorshipTools song library because you can manage your resources for both music stand and presenter here. Right off the bat, there's an option to create a new song, and you're going to want to use this button if you need to manually create a song for any reason. So that would be if you have original pieces that you want to add, or you don't have access to Song Select, or the song you're looking for is not available in Song Select, you can create them manually. If you're familiar with Chord Pro and you have Chord Pro files saved on your computer, you can import them into Planning with this import option, and Planning will create a new record for each of the songs that you import, so that's way faster than creating songs manually. Next, we have the search bar, and you can use this bar to sift through your existing library of songs, or again, if you have access to CCLI Song Select, it'll even pull up results from Song Select. There are a lot of results here, and a lot of them have similar titles, so you can hover over each song to see a little preview of the lyrics, and if you want to import a song into your library, click on it, preview the full set of lyrics if needed, and then click Import to Library. And now this song exists in my library, and it's ready for me to either edit or add to my services. Now, since we're here, let's take a quick look at all the different elements that make up a song file. There's the title and the copyright detail first, and all of that information was brought over from CCLI when we imported the song. Next, we've got default song key, which you can adjust to your preferred song key, so every time the song gets added to a service, it'll adopt your preferred key over the original key. If you want to use tags to organize your songs, you can do that here. And then we've got some listening media. These were imported from CCLI, but you can customize them by clicking Manage Media. You can add a YouTube link, curate from Spotify and Apple Music, or upload your own MP3s. Now, you don't have to have an Apple Music or Spotify linked to curate the list, but for your band members, when they're going in to rehearse and listen to these tracks, they're going to need their personal integrations that I mentioned earlier in this demonstration. Now, YouTube is free, so if you can find a YouTube link, that would probably be most helpful for your team. But basically, these resources are just there for them to listen to as they're preparing and practicing songs. And it just makes sure that everybody's listening to the same version of a given song so that everybody can play cohesively. Now, moving over to the right, we've got these 3 tabs, and this part is important. In planning, the lyrics tab correlates to your presenter song slides, and the chords tab correlates to your music stand chord charts. So those 2 things are separate. You'll notice that each of my song sections are encased in their own little box with a header and the lyrics inside. So the first box is actually my first slide for this song in Presenter. Verse 1B is my second slide, chorus A is my third slide, and so on. As far as planning is concerned, you just want the basic elements of the song here. So 1 verse 1, 1 verse 2, a chorus, etc. Just the basic building blocks of the song, because all of the repeats and the arrangements will be done in Presenter. So don't worry about doing that here. If you want to reformat your lines per slide, so you want 4 lines per slide instead of what you see here, 2 lines per slide, you can also do that in Presenter with a very quick, easy button that we have in that app. Now moving over to the chords tab, here we're looking at a fully rendered chord chart, but WorshipTools chord charts rely on something called Chord Pro formatting, which is kind of like the architectural blueprint of the chord chart. If you're not familiar with what Chord Pro is, please check out the Chord Pro articles and videos on our website support section. And I'll also go over it in our next workshop, Music Stand Made Easy, so make sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on when that is happening. But if I click on edit, that will take me to the Chord Pro editor, and as you can see, it's a little different than the chord charts that we're used to reading. And again, the articles on our website will walk you through all of that formatting, so we won't touch on that today, but it will be a valuable tool in your toolbox if you can learn it, because Chord Pro is the reason why you're able to change keys on the fly, adjust the font sizes and colors in Music Stand, change the tempo of the chart, rearrange sections of the song to match the actual order that you're singing it in, etc. So those are all things that wouldn't be possible if you were using a standard PDF chord chart, therefore the benefits of using the Chord Pro formatting. Just keep in mind that if you're importing songs from SongSelect, your level of SongSelect subscription will affect whether you have access to their chord profiles. For example, if you have SongSelect Advanced, you'll still get most of the benefits of Chord Pro in Music Stand and planning, but you won't be able to edit the Chord Pro like you see me doing here. Instead, you would get the option to create your own, so you would see a blank editor, whereas people who have SongSelect Premium would get access to the chord profiles. Moving on to our final tab here, that is the Attachments tab, and you can use this tab to import a PDF that you might have for the song on your computer or device. In planning, so far you can only import PDFs, but our Music Stand app actually lets you import and view some more things like SongSelect lead and vocal sheets and praise charts resources, so again, we'll go over all of that in the next workshop. Let's go ahead and save our changes. And some final things on this page, you can use the filter to narrow down your search, or click on these various column headers to sort your library. If you click on one more than once, it'll toggle between ascending and descending order. And lastly, if you want to view more songs from your library per page, you can select that down here. Okay, so we've already gone through the people, songs, and messages pages, and I don't think we've even hit the 20-minute mark yet. I was expecting this demo to take about an hour, but it looks like we might be done a little sooner than that. All we have left is the services page, which is where you'll probably spend most of your time in this app after you initially set up your roles, people, and songs. So let's head over to services. Service types are what you see in this left column, and they allow you to organize your services, but also set different automated service reminders per service type and customize people's permission levels for each service type. Before we go any further on this services page, let's take a quick trip to the service types page so that you can see how to manage these. If you're brand new to WorshipTools, you're probably only seeing that Sunday morning option, and that's because I created these other two types in my account prior to this demonstration. To add a new type, just click the Add Service Types button and type in whatever service type you'd like. I've seen churches do service types for contemporary and traditional services, services for different days of the week, summer camps, conferences, and even rehearsals, so feel free to use this tool however you need for your ministry. Oh, and if you use Music Stand, once in a while we get emails from our users asking why Sunday morning is the only option to choose from when making services in Music Stand. So in that scenario, you just need to visit this page in planning, make your types, and then Music Stand will update with all your different options. Now, right below the name is where you'll manage your reminders. You don't have to add reminders, but it is a nifty feature that you can make use of. In planning, when creating services, you have to designate a date and time for your service, but you also have the option to add rehearsal and call times. So the reminders can be set for any of those 3 times. You also have a variety of options for when those reminders go out, and I believe you can schedule up to 5 reminders per service type. For a typical Sunday morning service, I like to remind my volunteers that they're scheduled to serve about 5 to 6 days before the Sunday service. And then for rehearsals, I'll do like a day before. But for holidays, I might want to utilize that full 1 week in advance option. Once everything looks good, hit save, and now you've got your new service type added to the list. Let's jump back to services. So there's our updated list of service types, and just like on the people page, I can click on the different service types in this column to sort through my services, although it doesn't quite work right now because I only have this one service on here. I'm currently looking at upcoming services, but planning also archives all of your past services, so if you ever need to reference any of those, click Show Past and it'll show you all of those services, and then if you click it again, it'll come back to viewing upcoming services. Now let's go ahead and create a service together. The first step is to set my service date and time, and if I need to add more times, like another service time or a rehearsal time, I can do that here. And then you'll need to select a service type. I know that I just created holiday, but we're gonna go ahead and use Sunday morning. And then you can fill out these fields if you'd like and click Save. That creates the service, and now you're ready to plan it out. Before we jump to that, let's do a quick overview around the page. So service details are found right here, and these little icons are indicators for how many people have accepted an invitation to serve on this service versus how many people have not yet responded. If you need to edit the service details, click Edit, and then you also have some options to print the service order, clone the service, or delete it altogether. Cloning comes in handy if you have a specific service flow that you follow week by week. So you can create your initial service, then clone it each week instead of creating a new one from scratch, and then just replace the different songs, Bible passages, slides, etc. for the new week. In this corner, you can share attachments with your planning team. For example, the pastor can share his sermon notes here so that whoever is running slides knows exactly where to find the notes each week, instead of the pastor having to track that person down and emailing them the notes every time. And of course, down here is where you'll do the brunt of your planning. They're pretty self-explanatory, but the order tab is where you build out the service order, so let's start there. When building out your order, you can choose from headers or items. Headers are just buckets or folders that you can organize your items into, and they don't really have any function beyond that, whereas service items are going to be your songs, slides, Bible passages, images, etc. that you'll present to your audience in Presenter or view chord charts and other music for in Music Stand. So whatever you build here will be synced to your Music Stand and Presenter apps, given that all your devices are connected to a reliable internet connection. I'm going to start with an item, and you have the option to designate a time for it, but I'm feeling lazy, so I'll skip that part. For these items, I can choose from 4 item types: songs, slides, which refers to slides built and stored within Presenter, and scriptures. If you click songs, it opens up your library. You can see my 4 songs here, including the one that I imported earlier, but you'll also notice that song select results section here too. So super convenient if you need to add a song that hasn't been imported to your library yet. I'm just going to select one of these 4, but if I need to change or remove the song, I can do that here, and this is where you can adjust the key as well. If you leave the name field blank, planning will automatically show the title of the song that you selected and the key that you selected, so I'm going to leave that blank. And then the notes field comes in handy if you need to leave a note for your team about this specific service item. For example, this is a song item, and you might include the order of the arrangement of the song here, or make note of who's leading the song, or maybe you want them to listen to a specific version of the song. Whatever note you type in here will show up on the planning order, but also in Music Stand if they tap anywhere on the sheet music for this song. And now I have my first item in my service, and it's a song item as indicated by this musical icon. So this song will show up in my Music Stand set list, and the lyrics will be ready for me if I open up Presenter. Next, let's go down the row and do a slides item. As I mentioned earlier, these slides are the native Presenter slides, so you can't import a PowerPoint or Google Slides for Presenter through planning. And in order to choose a slides item here, that slide deck must already exist in Presenter. So a common use for this might be pre-service announcement slides that you reuse every week. Now, what can you do if the slides are just not in Presenter yet, but you still want it to appear in your service order? In that case, I would select blank as my option, and then in the name field, put something like Insert Sermon Slides, so that whoever opens up Presenter to finish building the presentation knows exactly where to link the sermon slides. Plus, anyone viewing the service between now and when the service slides get added in Presenter can still see the correct service order and be confident about the service flow as they're preparing for this service. And you can use that placeholder tip or trick for videos, images, or any other Presenter background or foreground option that's not available for selection in planning. I'll also note that the blank option can be left as a blank, and that's pretty typical for transitional moments between service items and will show up in Presenter as a blank black slide. So let's save that and build another service item. This time we're going to do scripture. In the last Presenter Made Easy workshop, I went over how to add Bibles to your account. So if you have any official WorshipTools Bibles in your presenter, you can select from those options here. Then select the passage that you want and hit save. If you open up Presenter, all of these slides will be ready for you, so this is a super convenient feature. And Presenter also gives you the option to import your own XML files if the translation that you're looking for isn't offered officially through WorshipTools. But because of the nature of those files, those translations won't show up here, so you'll have to select those translations in Presenter, and again, if you have to, you can use that placeholder tip that I gave you. So now I have a few service items here and I can keep going, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to pause here and switch over to the headers feature. You don't have to use headers, but I like to use them because it helps me visually organize my service order. Plus, headers don't count towards service item limitations on the WorshipTools free plan, so why not? I like to create a header for pre-service, another header for worship set 1, worship set 2, let's do teaching or sermon, and then we'll end with post-service. Obviously, there's some things missing here because I haven't created all my service items yet, but this is a good start, and I can come back and pick up where I left off at any time. I can even pick this up on either of the other two apps and build service order from there. So we'll leave the order like that, and I wanted to quickly show you this settings button. This first option, if you click Show All Service Items, Planning will give you the option to hide certain items from certain apps. So let's say you wanted to show this song in Music Stand, but you don't want the lyrics for it in Presenter, or you want to hide it from Planning for whatever reason, you can click on the respective icons, and then if you go back to that gear menu and show Planning items, you'll see that that song is now hidden from Planning. Import service items is really handy if you have elements that repeat from service to service. For example, maybe you always have a logo of your church on the screen at the start of service, or maybe your church is liturgical, so you have a lot of liturgy that repeats from week to week. You can use this import option to specify what service you want to import from, and then select exactly which items you want to bring over. Bulk delete is pretty self-explanatory. It allows you to delete things from your service order in bulk. And these are some view options for how you want your item lengths to be displayed, but if you remember, I was too lazy to do that, so I'll just leave them as they are. So that's the order page, and now it's time to schedule our volunteers. You don't have to fill out every role for every service, but find the roles that you do need for this service and invite people to those roles. There are only 2 people on my account, myself and Sally, so I don't have too many people to choose from, but hopefully you have some more people to help you out in your ministry. Let's schedule someone for announcements. You can see that both Sally and I are listed here and therefore available to fill this slot. But you'll also notice that I'm grayed out, and the reason for that is because I actually have an unavailable date submitted for September 1st through September 5th. Now, schedulers or hire can override that unavailable date, so if you've talked with this individual and worked something out where they can serve this week, you can go ahead and schedule them there. If I click on Pastor, you'll notice that Sally is not listed, and that's because Sally was not designated a pastor role when we were managing her roles on the People page. I, WorshipTools admin, am listed here, so I can select this person or myself again. However, sometimes there are roles that conflict with each other. For example, some roles don't conflict, like announcements and welcome team, but you might not be able to do something like kids ministry and play guitar for the adults at the same time. So if you need to check for conflicting roles as you're scheduling out your team members, you can click this calendar icon and it will tell you the most recent roles that this person served on and when, and it will also show you their roles that they're scheduled for on this service. Another place to schedule people and keep tabs on their conflicting roles is the scheduling matrix, which I'll show you in a moment. Once you have people in the roles that you want, you can send them their invitation, and that puts the ball in their court to either accept or decline their role assignment. If they decline, you'll just need to find someone else to fill that role. Now, this invite button here sends an invitation to everyone that you've placed on the schedule at once, whereas this invite button only sends an invite to this specific individual. Here we see that messages option again for those of you who have WorshipTools Pro or Pro Plus. As we head over to the Rehearse tab, we're actually crossing into Music Stand territory because the Rehearse tab, or at least this section, is essentially the Music Stand app embedded into the context of planning. And since I mentioned that we have a music stand workshop coming soon, I'm not going to go in depth here, but this is the page that your band members would reference to find that listening media and view the sheets for the song. If you're on the mobile app, you won't see this section because you can just open up the Music Stand app, but on the web version, you can view the sheets here, or you can even go to the Music Stand web app by clicking this Music Stand tab. So that covers our services, and as promised, let's take a look at the scheduling matrix real quick. You can see up to 4 services at a time on the scheduling matrix, and this is a really good way to schedule people to roles and services in one bird's eye view, but also keep an eye on those conflicting roles. So feel free to play around with this. You can even sort by service type, send invites, and create new services all from this page. So that's WorshipTools planning. I hope that this demonstration was helpful, and we really appreciate you attending today. I hope to see you all at the Music Stand event, and I'm going to pass it back to Adam for the closing remarks.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. To learn more about all that WorshipTools has to offer, you can check us out at WorshipTools.com.